Golden getaway. Tiffany surveyed the open suitcase, a meticulously curated array of designer activewear spilling over its edges. 3 shades of cashmere sweaters, each chosen for its precise hue of serenity, lay neatly folded beside a stack of noise-cancelling headphones. Even a relaxing weekend required strategic planning. She added a silk eye mask, embroidered with her initials in gold thread, a final touch of opulent preparation. Her crimson Ferrari, a sleek predator on city streets, purred impatiently as Tiffany navigated it onto the winding mountain road. The city's skyscrapers shrank in the rearview mirror, replaced by a tapestry of emerald pines and granite cliffs. She lowered the windows, letting the crisp mountain air sting her cheeks. The scent of pine needles replaced the usual cocktail of exhaust fumes and expensive perfume. It was different. She cranked up the classical music, the soaring violins a soundtrack to the unfolding panorama. Sunlight dappled through the trees, painting the road in shifting patterns of light and shadow. For a moment, she almost felt at peace. Almost. A nagging anxiety, a familiar companion, whispered that she should be checking emails, strategizing for the next quarter, or at least approving a marketing campaign. The GPS signal flickered intermittently, a disconcerting anomaly in her otherwise perfectly orchestrated life. The road narrowed, the asphalt becoming rougher, more akin to gravel in places. Mile markers were few and far between, each one seeming to confirm her increasing isolation. The spa, according to the slightly unreliable GPS, was still several miles away. A hawk circled overhead, its sharp cry echoing through the silent forest. Tiffany shivered, despite the cashmere sweater. The shadows were growing longer, stretching across the road like grasping fingers. She pressed down on the accelerator, the Ferrari's engine responding with a reassuring roar. Suddenly, the engine sputtered, coughed, and died. The car rolled to a silent stop on the shoulder of the increasingly desolate road. Tiffany pumped the accelerator, but the engine remained stubbornly silent. Panic, a cold wave, washed over her. She was alone. Miles from civilization. With a dead car. And the sun was sinking fast. She reached for her phone, her fingers fumbling with the sleek device. No signal. Of course. The perfectly curated escape had become a perfectly isolated trap. Stranded. The engine coughed, a sound like a dying beast gargling gravel. Tiffany gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the buttery leather. "Come on, baby," she murmured to the car, a sleek obsidian SUV that usually purred like a contented cat. It coughed again, a violent shudder rattling the frame, and then died completely. Silence descended, heavy and absolute, broken only by the chirping of unseen insects. Tiffany pumped the accelerator, futilely turning the key in the ignition. Nothing. Just the faint click-click-click of a defeated machine. "Great," she muttered, the word laced with acid. She was miles from anywhere, stranded on a narrow, rutted road that sliced through a dense forest like a poorly aimed knife. Reaching for her phone, she expected the familiar bars of signal strength. Instead, the screen displayed the dreaded "no service." Tiffany swore, a sharp, succinct expletive that echoed in the sudden stillness. Of course. Why wouldn't there be no service? This whole day had been a comedy of errors, starting with the disastrous board meeting and culminating in this ridiculous situation. The sun was already dipping below the tree line, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and angry orange. Long shadows stretched across the road, transforming familiar shapes into menacing figures. Tiffany shivered, despite the lingering warmth of the day. The air was growing cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. She tried the phone again, walking a few paces up the road, hoping for a miracle. Still nothing. Panic, a cold, clammy hand, began to tighten around her chest. Back in the city, she was Tiffany Sterling, CEO, a force to be reckoned with. Out here, she was just a woman alone in the woods, at the mercy of, what, exactly? She didn't even know what dangers lurked in these woods. Bears? Mountain lions? Or worse? The thought sent a fresh wave of anxiety through her. She locked the car doors, a pathetic gesture against an unknown threat. The interior of the SUV suddenly felt claustrophobic, a gilded cage in a darkening world. The setting sun cast long, skeletal fingers of light through the trees, making the forest seem alive, watchful. Each rustle of leaves, each snap of a twig, sent a jolt of fear through her. She was used to controlling situations, not being at their mercy. Now, she was utterly, terrifyingly alone. Shadows in the woods. The sun dipped below the tree line, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges that did little to soothe Tiffany's fraying nerves. The woods transformed with the fading light, friendly trees morphing into menacing silhouettes. Every rustle of leaves sounded like footsteps, every snap of a twig like a deliberate approach. A high-pitched whine, like an animal in distress, pierced the twilight. Tiffany jumped, her hand flying to her throat. It came again, closer this time, followed by a series of sharp barks, definitely not a dog. Her breath hitched. Were there coyotes here? Wolves? Her expensive city boots were definitely not designed for outrunning predators. She fumbled for the car keys, her fingers clumsy with fear. Click. 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 She checked each door, yanking on the handles to make sure they were locked. It felt pathetic, a flimsy barrier against whatever lurked in the woods. The leather seats, once a symbol of luxury, now felt like a cage. Darkness swallowed the road, leaving only the pale glow of the dashboard instruments to illuminate the interior. The air grew thick and heavy, carrying the scent of damp earth and something else, something musky and wild. Tiffany shivered, pulling her cashmere sweater tighter around her. She stared out the windshield, her eyes straining to penetrate the gloom. Every shadow seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous shapes. The silence, once peaceful, now pressed in on her, amplifying the frantic hammering of her heart. Her phone lay mockingly on the passenger seat, its screen dark and useless. Miles from anywhere. Alone. The realization crashed over her, a wave of icy dread. Tiffany, the CEO who commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals, was utterly helpless. A tear escaped and traced a lonely path down her cheek. She swiped at it angrily. Crying wouldn't help. She needed to think. Think like she did in the boardroom, strategize, find a solution. But all she could see were shadows, and all she could hear was the whispering of the woods. The thugs appear. Butch spat a stream of tobacco juice onto the cracked asphalt, the brown liquid disappearing into a web of fissures. Looky there, Vin, he rasped, nudging Vinny with a meaty elbow. City slicker riding dirty. Vinny squinted, his eyes crinkling at the corners. A sleek, silver sports car, gleaming even under the dusty film of the forest road, sat forlornly at the roadside. Damn, Butch, that's gotta be worth something. Worth more than the scrap we been pullin' out of Miller's junkyard, that's for sure. Butch's gaze narrowed, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Betcha a sweet little things behind the wheel. Lost, confused, and flashin' cash. Tiffany Sterling, oblivious to the scrutiny, wrestled with the unresponsive hood of her car. Her manicured nails were already chipped, her silk scarf askew. Sweat trickled down her temple, plastering a strand of blonde hair to her cheek. This whole trip was turning into a disaster. Easy pickings, Vin, Butch continued, a slow grin spreading across his face, revealing a missing tooth. Real easy. He slapped the dashboard of their beat-up Ford pickup. The truck shuddered in protest, a cloud of dust erupting from beneath its rusted fenders. Vinny, always more cautious, hesitated. You sure, Butch? Could be trouble. Maybe she's got a man waiting nearby. Butch snorted. In this backwater? Nah. Just some rich girl playing pioneer. Probably cried to her daddy when her cell phone lost signal. He slammed the truck into reverse, gravel spitting from beneath the tires. We ain't passin' up an opportunity like this. Turn around, VIN. Time to make ourselves useful. The truck lumbered back up the road, its engine a guttural growl that echoed through the trees. Tiffany, finally managing to pry the hood open, jumped back in surprise at the sound. She looked up, her heart quickening as the dilapidated truck screeched to a halt a few feet away. Two figures emerged, their faces obscured by the shadows of the cab. A prickle of unease ran down her spine. Something about their posture, their slow, deliberate movements, screamed danger. She instinctively reached for her phone, her fingers fumbling with the smooth, cold metal. Too late. They were already moving toward her. Demand and defiance. The crunch of gravel announced their arrival long before Tiffany saw them. She'd been attempting, for the 10th time, to call for roadside assistance, the phone stubbornly displaying no service. Two figures lumbered out of the woods, their shadows stretching long in the late afternoon sun. Butch, the larger of the two, sported a stained wife-beater and a sneer that could curdle milk. Vinny, wiry and twitchy, chewed on what looked like a toothpick. Well, Butch drawled, stopping a few feet from her and the gleaming wreckage of her sports car. Look what we have here. A little lost lamb. Tiffany straightened, forcing her shoulders back. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she refused to let it show. My car broke down. I'm waiting for help. Vinny spat the toothpick onto the dusty road. Help ain't coming, sweetheart. Not for a long while. Butch took a step closer, his shadow engulfing her. We saw that fancy car of yours. And that even fancier watch. And those rings. His gaze lingered on the diamond sparkling on her finger. We figure you got a whole lot of valuables we could relieve you of. Tiffany swallowed, her mouth suddenly dry. This wasn't some movie, this was real. She gripped the door of her car, the cool metal a small comfort. I don't have anything of value, she lied, her voice wavering slightly. Butch chuckled, a low, menacing sound. Don't play coy with us, princess. We know better. Just hand it over, and we'll be on our way. She met his gaze, her fear slowly hardening into defiance. No. The single word hung in the air, thick and heavy. Vinny's eyes narrowed. Did I just hear you say no? I did, Tiffany said, her voice stronger this time. I worked hard for everything I have. You're not getting any of it. She knew it was a gamble, a dangerous one, but the thought of these men profiting from her misfortune ignited a spark of fury within her. Butch's sneer deepened. You're making this difficult, sweetheart. Real difficult. He took another step, reaching out a grimy hand. Tiffany braced herself, ready to fight. She might be small, but she wasn't helpless. Get away from me, she yelled, her voice echoing in the sudden quiet. The air crackled with tension, the standoff poised on a knife's edge. Enter Jedediah. Look, sweetheart, Butch sneered, stepping closer, the sickly sweet scent of cheap liquor rolling off him. We ain't got all day. Just hand over the purse and the fancy watch, and nobody gets hurt. Vinny cracked his knuckles, the sound amplified in the still air. Tiffany's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't some roadside inconvenience, this was real. I don't have much cash, she stammered, fumbling for her phone. But I can call for a tow. Butch snatched the phone from her hand, tossing it into the nearby scrub brush. The screen cracked on impact. No calls. Just cooperation. His eyes, bloodshot and predatory, raked over her tailored suit. Maybe we can find other ways for you to compensate us for our trouble. Panic clawed at Tiffany's throat. She took a shaky step back, her Jimmy Choo sinking slightly into the soft earth at the roadside. Please, just take the car. It's insured. Vinny chuckled, a low, guttural sound. The car? Honey, we got bigger plans than a busted-up sports car. A twig snapped. All three of them froze. The sound, sharp and distinct, came from the thick woods bordering the road. Butch and Vinny exchanged nervous glances. Tiffany, though terrified, felt a flicker of something akin to hope. Then, he emerged. Jedediah Stone was a mountain of a man. He was dressed in buckskins, fringed and worn, that spoke of long years spent in the wilderness. A thick, braided beard, the color of granite, cascaded down his chest. His eyes, the startling blue of a glacial lake, held a gaze that was both intense and strangely calming. He carried himself with a quiet strength, an aura of untamed power. He had appeared so silently and suddenly that it was as if the forest itself had exhaled him into existence. Butch and Vinny stumbled back, their bravado momentarily forgotten. Jedediah didn't say a word. He simply stood there, his presence a solid wall of silent judgment. The air crackled with unspoken challenge. He was a figure out of time, a relic of a wilder, more dangerous world, and he was standing between Tiffany and her tormentors. Mountain justice. Tiffany, oblivious, fussed with her phone, cursing the lack of signal. The sun beat down on the crimson hood of her sports car, baking the leather seats. She dabbed at her forehead with a silk scarf, the air thick and heavy with the scent of pine and dust. A gravelly cough broke through her concentration. She looked up, startled, her heart leaping into her throat. Two figures emerged from the scraggly trees bordering the road. They were large, greasy, and wore expressions that made her stomach churn. Butch, the shorter of the two, sported a stained wife-beater, and a sneer that could curdle milk. Vinny, lanky and twitchy, kept glancing around as if expecting trouble. Well, Butch drawled, his voice a rusty hinge. Look what we found. A little lost lamb. He took a step closer, his eyes raking over Tiffany's designer dress. Car trouble, sweetheart. Tiffany clutched her phone tighter. Just waiting for a tow truck, she managed, her voice trembling. Tow truck's gonna be a long time, Vinny cackled, a high-pitched, unsettling sound. Before Butch could reply, a voice boomed from the edge of the trees, a voice that seemed to resonate from the very mountains themselves. Leave her be. Both Butch and Vinny whirled around, their eyes widening. Jedediah Stone stood there, a monolithic presence against the backdrop of the forest. He was easily 6.5 feet tall, his shoulders broad enough to block out the sun. His beard, a tangled mass of grey and brown, reached his chest. He didn't carry a weapon, but he didn't need to. His sheer size was intimidating enough. Butch sputtered, "Who the hell are you?" Jedediah didn't answer. He simply cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. He took a single step forward, his boots crunching on the gravel. The air crackled with unspoken threat. Vinny swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. He tugged at Butch's sleeve. "Maybe we should go, Butch." Butch, though clearly shaken, tried to maintain his bravado. "We ain't scared of no mountain man." But his voice lacked conviction. Jedediah took another step. Butch's resolve crumbled. He glared at Tiffany, then back at Jedediah. "This ain't worth it," he muttered. He shoved Vinny towards their beat-up pickup truck, parked further down the road. "Let's go." They scrambled into the truck, the engine roaring to life. They sped away, kicking up a cloud of dust that momentarily obscured Jedediah from view. Tiffany watched them disappear, her legs weak with relief. Cabin in the woods. "Easy now, little bird," the mountain of a man murmured, his voice a surprising rumble of comfort. "They are gone. Just breathe." He offered a hand, calloused and immense, and Tiffany, trembling, took it. His grip was firm, reassuring, not threatening like the goons who'd just scattered. "My car," she stammered, gesturing weakly at the sleek, now useless sports car. He grunted, unimpressed. That ain't goin' nowhere tonight. Come on. I got a cabin not too far from here. Warmer than this road and I can fix you something to eat. Hesitantly, Tiffany agreed. He practically lifted her into his ancient, battered pickup truck. The interior smelled of pine needles and something vaguely animal. The ride was short but jarring, each bump sending shivers through her still-shaken frame. The cabin, when they arrived, was a shock. Tiffany had pictured something rustic, bordering on squalid. Instead, it was surprisingly cozy. A fire crackled merrily in a stone hearth, casting a warm glow on the hand-hewn logs. Thick rugs covered the wooden floor, and the air smelled of wood smoke and simmering stew. "Welcome to my humble abode," the man said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I'm Jedediah Stone." He gestured towards a worn armchair. "Sit. Relax. I'll get you that stew." Tiffany sank into the chair, the soft cushions a welcome relief. Jedediah moved with a surprising grace for his size, ladling a thick stew into a wooden bowl and handing it to her with a hunk of crusty bread. The warmth of the stew spread through her, chasing away some of the chill and fear. As she ate, Jedediah settled into a rocking chair across from her, the firelight dancing on his weathered face. "This forest," he began, his voice low and steady, "she's got teeth. But she also got kindness. You just gotta know how to look for it." He told stories of tracking deer, of outsmarting bears, of the quiet wisdom he'd learned from the whispering pines. Tiffany listened, captivated. His tales were a world away from board meetings and stock options, a world that felt both dangerous and strangely comforting. The fear began to recede, replaced by a tentative sense of peace. Maybe, just maybe, she was going to be all right. Maybe, stranded in the middle of nowhere, she had found an unlikely haven. Unexpected gratitude. The morning light, a sharp contrast to the prior night's ordeal, sliced through the canopy, scattering fractured sunshine across the grimy hood of Tiffany's sports car. Jedediah, already stirring by a small blaze, extended a tin cup filled with a brew that hinted at pine needles and wild berries. "Drink up," he murmured, his tone a deep vibration. "It'll chase the chill." She took it, the warm liquid a welcome balm against her scratchy throat. "I appreciate it," she rasped, the words falling short of her gratitude. "Just doing what's right. Now, let's get you extracted from this mess." Jedediah's movements were spare and efficient, as he retrieved a well-worn phone, an antique next to her sleek device. "Service is fickle out here, but I know a fellow with a wrecker." After several tries, he connected, relaying their coordinates with a series of cryptic landmarks. The quoted price elicited a grimace, but she nodded. Freedom had a price. The tow truck was due in 2 hours. Tiffany wondered, the silence broken only by the snapping fire and the distant songs of unseen birds. When the flatbed finally groaned into view, a wave of profound relief washed through her. As the driver set about securing her prized possession, Tiffany turned to Jedediah. Dipping into her designer bag, she withdrew a substantial stack of bills. I don't know how to repay you. This is for your trouble." She offered the money, easily worth hundreds. Jedediah didn't even spare it a glance. His gaze remained fixed on the ongoing operation. "No need for that. But, you rescued me. You kept me from harm. Please accept it." Tiffany insisted, pushing the wad towards him. He finally met her eyes, his expression inscrutable. "Knowing you're safe is reward enough. You needed help. And besides," the barest hint of a smile played on his lips, "that kind of currency ain't worth much in these parts." Tiffany blinked, taken aback. She had anticipated something. In her world, appreciation came with a price tag. This unadulterated kindness was unsettling. She lowered the money, a blush rising up her neck. You risked a lot for me. Let me show my appreciation somehow. Jedediah simply shrugged, turning back to tend the flames. Safe travels, Miss Sterling. And maybe consider a vehicle with all-terrain capability next time you wander off the beaten path. As the tow truck operator motioned for her to climb aboard, Tiffany hesitated. Thank you, Jedediah, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. Truly, thank you. She settled into the cab, watching as Jedediah receded into the trees, swallowed by the emerald depths. As the truck strained forward, leaving the wilderness behind, Tiffany clutched her purse, the untouched roll of cash suddenly feeling cumbersome and irrelevant. She had sought an escape, a thrill. Instead, she had discovered something far more precious. A potent reminder that generosity could flourish in the most unexpected corners, and that genuine wealth lay not in mere money, but in the quiet fortitude of a man who asked for nothing in return.